It's no secret that the 2024-25 USC Trojan basketball team looks much different than last year and previous years. After head coach Andy Enfield left for SMU and newly hired leader Eric Musselman took the reins, Musselman had to string together a roster of misfit toys in a short period, consisting of mid-tier transfers, unproven freshmen, and a bunch of question marks. Through 13 regular season games, with most of which being non-conference games, the Trojans have proven one thing to myself, someone who watches every single game. They're an intriguing team. They may not be great, but they're inspiring, well, at least some of the time, and they play an interesting game. Musselman's philosophy is very team-conscious and high-intensity, somewhat different from that of Enfield's, which seemed to be more traditional and effective on the transition, and very up-tempo. Musselman, new and 9-4 through the non-conference stretch of his first USC season, has a very interesting roster on his hands. First, let's get into some of USC's trends so far. The Trojans, without a true point guard nor a legitimate first option emerging yet, aren't a terrible three-point shooting team. Their three-point attack comes in inconsistent waves, with guys like Chibuzo Abo or St. Thomas often heating up in certain games and catalyzing the team's strong perimeter presence. The Trojans have the 8th best three-point percentage in the Big Ten. Not a bad feat considering they're ahead of premier teams like Oregon and Michigan State. Scoring inside, USC isn't bad either. The team has implemented a sort of score-by-committee approach, which has allowed unsung heroes to step up in needed moments. But averaging only 76.4 points per game won't cut it in a high-scoring college basketball landscape. The lack of a true number one has plagued the Trojans on numerous occasions, most notably against number 12 Oregon, who bid a late comeback and took USC down at Galen Center despite trailing at halftime. Defensively, USC has been pretty strong. This isn't surprising for a Musselman-led group that would surely employ his cerebrally constructed defensive structure, but the Trojans have held opponents to under 40% from the field, good for second in the Big Ten. USC has struggled more with perimeter defense, which sort of makes sense considering the types of players Musselman puts together to begin games. There's a lot of hustle, just not a lot of fluidity yet on the defensive end, especially with some players not entirely fitting their given roles. But it's hard to analyze a roster without actually diving into it. So let's jump into the early developments shown by the USC roster and how the team will look to at least make some noise in its brand new conference. The first player I want to look at is Chibuzo Abo.
Uncertain ball handling from St. Thomas. Got the job done and got his guy Abo. Getting a feeling that this could be a big day.
I mentioned him earlier, but Abo has been one of the Trojans' bright spots so far. Let's set the record straight. USC is often afraid to shoot the deep ball. Abo leads the team with 32 three-point makes, while the next most frequent three-point shooter only has 12. Averaging over 13 points per game, Abo is an efficient and versatile guard. He's a tall 6'7" and doesn't turn the ball over much, and he's appeared to fit well into the make a three when needed type of role. He can score at all three levels and can put the ball in the hoop well off the dribble. Scoring is his main asset, but given that he's not the typical guard archetype and his playmaking skills haven't particularly made waves in the offense, Abo hasn't taken the leap to be the team's leader yet. He has a very solid offensive IQ in moving without the ball and getting open on the perimeter, but his passing just isn't quite there yet. His 1.2 assists per game speak to that, but he's a good rebounder for his size, averaging 4.2 per game. He kind of reminds me of Danny Green. Plenty of three-point upside, but not a guy you can typically rely on to carry an offense necessarily. But like Green, Abo can space the floor well, and he's certainly a player coaches like to give a lot of minutes to, considering his ability to slot in and perform. Abo is 4th in the Big Ten in threes per game with 2.5. I like Abo a lot in the team's offense. He transferred from Boise State after capping off his Bronco career with a 17-point performance in the NCAA tournament, a game in which he surprisingly didn't succeed much from beyond the arc. Nonetheless, his ability to do many different things allowed him to start the 2024-25 season off strong, something USC hoped for when they nabbed him in the transfer portal. Next, I want to talk about Desmond Claude.
More than that, and this is both when the Huskies really need some points. And right at the horn, splash! Desmond Claude caps a ferocious first half for you.
Claude is probably the closest thing the Trojans have to a first option. He's led the team in scoring in 5 games this season and averages 14.5 points per game to lead the team. Not only that, but as a pass-first point guard, he's tallying close to 4 assists per game with an efficient 52% shooting clip. Listed at 6'6", like Abo, he's big for a guard. It's not a bad thing, but it speaks to the out-of-position theme I brought up earlier, which can sometimes clog up Musselman's offense. Claude's early success shouldn't come as a surprise. He played against Big East competition for a full season at Xavier and showed his energetic, high-octane ability to the tune of 16.6 points per game and 4 rebounds, along with the Big East Most Improved Player honors and all-freshman recognition. At USC so far, he's been the player they've needed at the 1, but obviously, without a consistent three-point stroke in his arsenal, he's been held back a bit. He's only had a few bad games so far, but the team has been able to overcome his poor performances, which is a positive. Claude is strong when entering the lane and can be hard to guard inside the paint, as he can hit mid-range shots with ease as well. He's shooting over 55% from 2-point distance, and at this point, he's been the Trojans' leader. This is a positive considering that the team is still generating chemistry. He's a strong finisher and is a high IQ, crafty player around the rim. Claude will want to improve his defense to elevate his game. Through multiple close contests, he hasn't been able to offer much to stop opposing point guards, such as Oregon's Jackson Shellstat. This could become an issue when Big Ten play fully begins. I see Claude as a Karis LeVert type player, bringing strong mid-range scoring and someone who can break out on a given night to erupt for big performances while also dishing out looks to his teammates. Claude isn't a perfect player, but he's been USC's strongest through 13 games. As a true leadership spot is up for grabs on a team with just one returner who actually logged minutes last season, Claude could certainly be that guy. He's probably not the typical player to take the last shot in a tight game, but he can run an offense and beat opponents off the dribble well. Next, I want to look at St. Thomas.
Here's Thomas launching the deep two, and the transfer from Northern Colorado is on the board.
St. Thomas is another versatile member of the Trojans, slotting in at forward as a 6'7" rim attacker. Thomas was very good at Northern Colorado last year, averaging close to 20 points per game, and he's been pretty good for USC so far too. One word to describe Thomas would be aggressive. He fights for every rebound, takes strong reads inside the arc, and is quick laterally. Thomas's biggest flaw has been his scoring inconsistencies. After a strong preseason debut against UTSA, he hasn't really caught a spark yet. The season is young, but going 0 for 6 against Oregon from the floor in 29 minutes just isn't going to cut it. Thomas absolutely deserves a starting spot given his length and size combined with solid inside scoring. He's averaging 9.6 points per game and a team-leading 5.9 rebounds. Thomas shares the ball well, racking up many assists so far this season. I'd say he's probably the Trojans' most physical player, and this often helps him get to the lane where he thrives the most. Like Claude, he turns the ball over a good amount and isn't great from downtown, but his good defensive play and grittiness are what ultimately gives him the starting forward job. Advertised as a high-scoring, tempo-running forward, Thomas hasn't totally lived up to this role at USC. Undoubtedly, USC is a different landscape than Northern Colorado, but Thomas will want to build off his electric 2023-24 campaign if he wants to make some noise. He's certainly underrated without the ball, typically cutting hard to the rim and finishing with force inside. Touted as a potential draft prospect heading into this season, Thomas will have work to do on both ends. While a sound defender, he is prone to receiving a mismatch, but this can sometimes help him when he backs down smaller opponents in the post. I see Thomas as a similar player to Otto Porter Jr. in the NBA. Plenty of offensive upside, a hard glass presence, and an ability to guard different types of players. Thomas, like Claude, will often be relied upon to take the first option role when Big Ten play rolls around. Thomas was vital in the Trojans' blowout win over Big Ten foe Washington with 19 points on 75% shooting, and will need similar performances to remain a mainstay in the offense. He's a very good team player, he just needs to catch a rhythm. Next, Terrence Williams II.
Says from last game against Cal, just to stay in front of the basketball.
And Williams finishes.
Great job by Williams.
Williams has had scattered appearances so far as he's battled multiple injuries, only suiting up in 7 of the team's 13 matches. But in limited action, he showed his three-point ability along with a knack for grabbing boards by using his physical edge. Williams was a 4-year player at Michigan where he would eventually earn a full-time starting role, an important note considering he'll know what regular Big Ten competition feels like, unlike most of his teammates. Williams is a score-first, pass-second forward with a strong scoring ability and a nice jump shot. He actually tweaked his shooting form while at Michigan, and it helped him increase his scoring. USC has been pretty good at dodging injuries so far, but Williams has not been able to get on the court much. This will be big for the team's depth going forward, as Musselman has had to tinker with the starting lineup and the bench hasn't brought a big scoring edge yet. I see Williams as a similar player to Tobias Harris. He can rebound and score pretty efficiently with his size and can hit from deep when needed. Musselman will just hope for a speedy recovery for a 6'7" forward. Now, time to look at Josh Cohen.
This is Josh Cohen. That's old school. Man, that's really old school. Just back him in.
Cohen, at 6'10", is USC's starting big man. But yet, scoring 10.2 points per game, he's only averaging 16 minutes of action. He'll often split time with Rashawn Agee in the middle, but Musselman has selected Cohen to be the main center. Cohen plays a simple game and it often works, but he's not grabbing as many rebounds as he should, a big issue considering USC is dead last in the Big Ten in rebounds per game with 32.1. Cohen's upside is his efficiency. He's able to score double-digit points in limited playing time because he doesn't miss much inside, and he's physical when going to the cup. It'll be interesting to see how his role changes, if at all, if Musselman decides to give AG more time at the 5. Cohen reminds me a little bit of Trace Jackson-Davis in the NBA. Not the best rebounder, but efficient enough inside. Cohen will be the focal point of USC's offense that doesn't rely on the 3 to win games as the season progresses. Last but not least, Wesley Yates III.
3-1 out of them, but when their defense is good, they're really good, like most teams. Let's see what their energy level looks like here early.
Well, here is Wesley Yates. That's what a lot of folks in this building.
Yates is the final player I'm going to analyze. He's been in and out of the starting lineup, but has shown flashes as a 6'4" guard. Yates was with Washington last season, but didn't play, so he's still new to the college basketball landscape. Yates can score efficiently off the dribble or quickly from a pass, and on some occasions, he has displayed potential in running offensive sequences himself, an admirable trait for a younger player. Yates has delivered well when called upon and had a 19-point outing against his former school. Offensively, he'll want to aim to be a bit less predictable and assert himself as a versatile playmaker on the court. His 3-point shot could be better, but he has a good release and has the framework to be a good player. He's a scoring-first type of player, maybe hindering his passing ability so far at USC. I've liked his defense, and it'll be exciting to see him grow. My NBA comparison for Yates is Jordan Clarkson. He's crafty and quick and can do a lot inside for his size. Yates will definitely be a player to keep your eyes on. Now, to wrap things up, USC is not a top team, and even Eric Musselman knows that. He literally said he didn't know how many Big Ten games his team would win, which is a fair assessment. It's a new roster in a new conference with a new coach. Not only that, but USC hasn't quite found its 1A player to lead the team on a nightly basis, which isn't super encouraging. But the roster is interesting and will make for some fascinating storylines as we head into the new calendar year. The Big Ten is a physical, grueling conference, but if USC can play spoiler and steal some games, they'll create some good building blocks for next year. Not only that, but a decent season might give Musselman some more pull in the recruiting world to build back the program. Well, that'll do it all from me. I'm Casey Kasliner, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to drop a like and let me know in the comments what you're expecting to see from USC as they begin Big Ten play in just a matter of days. Basketball season is the best time of the year. Have a good one, guys.